Kenyan riot police stormed a quiet hotel meeting and tear-gassed African diplomats, the world gasped. What was meant to be a bold step toward unity became a shocking betrayal that could change the future of the entire continent. In the heart of Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré carried a vision that many had long abandoned. The dream of an Africa free from foreign strings and built by the strength of its own people. His country was rich in gold, but generations of exploitation had left scars that could not be ignored. Traoré knew Burkina Faso could not stand alone in this fight, so he searched for allies who shared the same fire for independence. His eyes turned to Kenya, a nation alive with innovation, technology, and bustling trade networks. To him, the combination of Burkina's resources and Kenya's innovation could spark a revolution for the continent. Quietly, away from the noise of politics and outside influence, talks began between his team and trusted Kenyan officials. Meetings took place in modest offices, far from cameras, where young advisors scribbled plans on paper for shared schools, new farms, and trade routes linking West and East Africa. There was laughter in those rooms, the kind that came from believing in something bigger than oneself. Outside, Nairobi buzzed with life. Street vendors shouted prices for ripe mangoes. Children played barefoot soccer in dusty lots, and boda-boda motorbikes weaved through the crowded streets. But inside those hidden rooms, history was quietly being written. Young Kenyans and Burkinabés shared stories of their parents' struggles and their own dreams of a future where Africans traded with Africans instead of bowing to outsiders. Every handshake, every cup of steaming tea, carried the weight of a promise to stand together. Yet, whispers of the secret deal began to leak, traveling fast in a city where rumors were as quick as the traffic horns. Some welcomed the idea with hope, others frowned with suspicion, and powerful figures who feared losing their grip began to stir in the shadows. What began as quiet cooperation soon found its way into the noisy streets of Nairobi. The secret talks between Burkina Faso and Kenya could not remain hidden for long. Rumors moved faster than fire, carried in markets, whispered in parliament corridors, and shouted across social media timelines. Some Kenyans were excited, calling it a bold move toward a stronger Africa, while others saw danger, warning that such a deal could shake the balance of power. Politicians with deep ties to foreign governments muttered angrily, fearing their influence would crumble if Africans chose to rely on each other. As the rumors spread, the atmosphere in Nairobi shifted. Outside the hotel, where Traoré's advisors met with Kenyan allies, a few protesters began to gather, holding signs that read, "Stop outsiders," and chanting slogans against change. Their voices were small at first, but they were backed by powerful figures pulling strings in the background. Inside the modest hotel room, the mood was different. Papers filled the tables, ideas of new farms, factories, and trade routes scribbled with excitement. Over cups of tea, young advisors and local supporters spoke with glowing faces about what their nations could achieve together. Amina, Traoré's calm and determined advisor, reassured the group that fear was natural when old systems were being challenged. But outside, the police had arrived. Riot officers, dressed in dark uniforms with shields gleaming under the fading sun, stood silently at first, watching the small crowd grow louder. Radios crackled on their belts, voices from higher offices pushing for stronger action. The air thickened with tension, a sense that something bigger was about to unfold. From inside the hotel, a Kenyan supporter peeked through the curtain and saw the police tightening their circle. Hope filled the room, but unease was spreading outside, two worlds moving closer to collision. The hotel room that had been alive with laughter and big dreams suddenly turned into a battlefield the moment the riot police made their move. Without warning, heavy boots thundered up the narrow stairs, and then, crash, a window shattered as a canister of tear gas hissed into the room, filling the air with choking white smoke. Coughing and stumbling, Traoré's advisors tried to protect their notes and laptops, but the gas burned their eyes and stung their throats. Amina, her face tight with determination, pulled a young Kenyan student to safety behind the table, shielding him as chaos erupted. The door flew open with a violent kick, and officers in black armor stormed in, shields raised, batons striking at anything in their way. "Hands up!" they shouted, their voices harsh and commanding. Papers, the very plans for schools, farms, and United African Trade Network, were scattered across the floor, trampled under heavy boots. Juma, a Kenyan teacher who had joined the talks out of hope for his country's future, cried out, "This is just a meeting. We are building hope, not war." But an officer shoved him down, his phone clattering across the floor as it kept recording. The footage captured diplomats choking on smoke, hands raised helplessly, faces filled with disbelief. Within minutes, wrists were bound with zip ties, and the room once filled with hope became a scene of despair. Outside, the crowd screamed as they saw their leaders dragged into police vans. Phones were raised high, recording every second, and soon the videos flooded social media, spreading outrage across Nairobi and beyond. In Ouagadougou, Captain Traoré watched the clips in silence, his jaw clenched like stone. What was meant to be a step toward unity had been shattered by betrayal, and the fire of anger was just beginning to rise. The raid on the Nairobi hotel did not end with tear gas and arrests. It sparked a storm that spread across the continent like wildfire. By dawn, videos of coughing diplomats, scattered papers, and young Africans dragged into police vans were everywhere. Hashtags like #AfricaUnited and #PoliceTooFar surged online, uniting voices from Dakar to Addis Ababa. In Ouagadougou, Captain Traoré appeared on national television, his face calm, but his words cutting through the silence. "This was not just an attack on my people. It was an attack on the dream of an independent Africa." His voice carried fury and hope, igniting cheers and protests in Burkina Faso streets. In Nairobi, outrage boiled over. University students marched with placards reading, "Africa is one," while workers filled the streets demanding answers from their government. President Ruto, caught off guard, faced a tidal wave of criticism. Citizens questioned how their country could betray guests who had come in peace. Across West Africa, nations like Mali and Niger condemned the assault, calling it a wound to brotherhood. Even in Kenya, not everyone sided with the government. Vendors in crowded markets shook their heads, saying the police had shamed the nation. The African Union scrambled, calling emergency talks to calm the crisis before it split alliances apart. But the people had already taken a lead. In city squares, in schools, and across social media, Africans were demanding unity louder than ever before. The raid, meant to silence cooperation, had instead amplified it, turning whispers of unity into a thunderous cry. Yet beneath the chants and hashtags, tension still burned. The question lingered: would this rage force leaders to come together, or push them further apart? The fire of unity had been lit, but it could still burn everything down. The dust of the Nairobi raid had not yet settled, but its echoes reached every corner of Africa, forcing leaders to choose a side. Kenya's government, shaken by the anger of its own citizens, announced a public inquiry into the police raid and quietly suspended the officers who led the assault. Under mounting pressure, President Ruto reached out directly to Captain Traoré, offering both apologies and a chance to revive the talks. In Ouagadougou, Traoré listened in silence before responding with measured strength. If this betrayal teaches us anything, it is that the dream of unity cannot be hidden behind closed doors. It must be owned by the people. His words ignited a wave of town hall gatherings across Burkina Faso and Kenya, where ordinary citizens debated openly about shared schools, farms, and trade networks. For the first time, the idea of unity was not confined to elite discussions, but lived in the voices of farmers, students, and market vendors. Across Africa, nations like Senegal, Rwanda, and Ghana signaled interest, inspired by the movement that no raid could crush. Amina, Traoré's advisor who had endured the tear gas, returned to the table stronger than ever, helping draft a new agreement. This time public, transparent, and celebrated by millions. By week's end, Kenya and Burkina Faso signed the partnership live on a joint broadcast, their leaders shaking hands over a video call that was streamed across the continent. Crowds erupted in cheers, young Africans waving flags and chanting for unity. What began in secrecy, broken by betrayal, had grown into something larger, a flame no tear gas could extinguish. The raid that was meant to divide had instead united. And as the cameras captured faces filled with hope, one truth was clear: a new dawn for Africa had begun. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and share to spread the message. Subscribe now to Faso Histories for more powerful stories of Africa's unity and strength.